killed an estimated 60 to 66 million people. More famines and purges would occur. The very peasants that communism was supposed to benefit instead starved to death under its rule. The party dictates what is right and wrong. Mao ended up killing between 50 million and 70 million people. As an investigative journalist, I want to understand why.
What drives the political action?
This is a blueprint. This is a blueprint for how the CCP can weaponize our media, our government, our legal system to go after any company or any group they want to.
It's really gone global. Political warfare has, in a way that, quite frankly, we've never seen.
Speech, religion, assembly, and all other rights and freedoms. So for me, part of this is showing what communism tries to crush out, not only what its starting premises are, but what it has to destroy in order to do what it's aiming to do, because it's a revolutionary ism, it's a revolutionary project.
And using deceit, right?
Right, exactly. And it's based on a lie. Communism is based, that's what it is. I mean, the greatest dissidents talk about don't live the lie, from Solzhenitsyn to Havel, everybody in between. They all talk this way. They understood it. And then the other thing is, this starts to suggest what we are for if we are in a free society. And so a lot of young people that come in here, they're used to taking speech, these freedoms of speech, religion, assembly for granted. And so their first exposure here is realizing, oh, so there's a kind of government that doesn't allow those things. And so this is what we're trying to get going in them. Yeah. And then this connects in a way, because this exhibit right here, we're showing again this universalism, this horrible ideology, this totalitarian thing called communism. And it is applied in different countries, some movements too, but mostly in different countries for over 100 years now. And this particular space shows that no matter where you go, the communists are doing the same kinds of things over and over again to impose their horrible system that is based on false promises. So let's go on to the next room. Stories. So in this particular gallery, there are a number of personal stories. And you'll see that there are different countries, different people, but again, the communists are doing the same kinds of things. So, for example, on this wall, you have 3 personal stories, and all 3 of the figures were anti-Nazi and anti-communist, and then repressed or killed by the communists. And just to take as one example, you have here Milada Horokova, who was a Czech politician and lawyer. This is her show trial. So no rule of law in a communist country. And she already knows what the outcome's going to be. She already knows that she's going to be put to death. And this quote is from the letter that she writes her daughter before her death.
Life is hard. It does not temper anybody. And for every time it strokes you, it gives you 10 blows.
Because of our special artifacts, these are some of my favorite here at the Victims of Communism Museum. So what does this look like to you, Cindy?
It looks like an X-ray of something?
That's right. So it is an actual X-ray, and then what's inscribed on it, what's loaded onto it effectively, is an album. And this is an album by the Beatles.
A great book, if it's watching a video, reading a primary document, a speech, or a part of the...
Or watching this video here.
Video, exactly.
Can I add one more thing?
Okay.
Why we learn her history? And it's because the history never died. And the reason we learn history is we want to preserve our freedom. And so that is the real reason. That affects everyone. And everyone, I think, no matter on which political spectrum you're in, we all want freedom. And communism is the opposite. Yeah, we have to fight communism in order to preserve our freedom.
That's right. And during the Cold War, there were a number of scholars and lay people who said that the real battle was between communism and freedom. They didn't say that it was between communism and liberal democracy, or communism and capitalism, or it was communism and freedom. And we need people to understand that history all the way up to now. And until China and the other communist countries fall, unfortunately, we still have to have them understand that tomorrow and on and on and on. Freedom is not, it's sturdy, but it can be taken away if you are complacent. A lot of people think it's a very passive thing to be a citizen. And if you do that, then you start losing your freedom. That's some of what you've been seeing here in the United States, unfortunately.
That's a good point. All right. Well, thank you all very, very much for this conversation.
Thank you. You're welcome, Cindy. Thank you.
The tyranny of communism, but perhaps that's the strongest lesson to learn, the value of freedom. Safeguarding freedom, now that's a lesson worth learning. I'm Cindy Druth-Hare. Thank you for joining us on this special edition.
Who flees a communist regime with her mom. You don't know where she's from, so that's on purpose. I wanted to keep it vague, so that somebody maybe who's from Cuba or from Cambodia or from Korea or from Albania or wherever could relate to this book, because the themes are the same. Yeah. So she comes into a classroom, and first she gets to experience having her own school supplies. And so that sort of brings up that issue of ownership. From the classroom, she then goes out on the playground, and when she's up on the top of the jungle gym, she spies a demonstration happening, sort of a free and peaceful protest. And she at first is scared, because in her country, and fill in the blank, that could be any country, they don't have that freedom. So you might pause and think about Tiananmen Square or any other number of protests that have been shut down by the government. And then she goes to the lunchroom, and from there she gets to experience this abundance of food and choices, and everybody trading their lunches, and then she gets to eat her very first potato chip. And then she goes to chapel after lunch, and this, of course, would be a new experience, because her religion has been suppressed in her country, because she would have had to put her leader first. And then at the end, she meets her mom, and then she asks a question: what were the children doing, in the chapel? Were they honoring their leader like we had to? Is he a god? And I kept thinking of Lily Tang Williams, thinking that Mao was a god. And for her, when she first started realizing that communism was a sham, that she was being lied to, was when Mao died. She realized this was not a god. Then her mother tells her about the real god, who gives people their freedoms, and then which is what freedom is, what our country cherishes, or what America cherishes. And then Mia thought for a moment, and then said, "Now that I know about freedom, I cherish it too." So, and that's how the book.
This is really great, because you have, it's from all these real stories, and you've distilled them into, a page in this children's book.
And every time I've read it, I've had a different conversation. So I oftentimes, I don't just read all the way through, I'll stop. And somebody may want to talk about, the poverty, or not having their own things, or the hunger, or whatever it might be. It's been a wonderful teaching tool for parents. In fact, my favorite review online is a mom who said, make sure you have enough time to explain things to your kids.
Living in Virginia, decided to go to her school board meeting to express concern she had with the curriculum. Her 1-minute speech went viral.
You are now training our children to be social justice warriors and to loathe our country and our history. Growing up in Mao's China, all this seemed very familiar. The communist regime used the same critical theory to divide people. The only difference is they use class instead of race. During the Cultural Revolution, I witnessed students and teachers turn against each other. We changed school names to be politically correct. We were taught to denounce our heritage. The Red Guards destroy anything that is not communist, old statues, books, and anything else. We are also encouraged to report on each other, just like the Student Equity Ambassador Program and the bias reporting system. This is indeed the American version of the Chinese Cultural Revolution. The critical race theory has its roots in cultural Marxism. It should have no place in our schools.
Xi Van Fleet's words obviously resonated and brought her instant fame. Suddenly,
Understand about the nuclear dimension of the Cold War, but that doesn't help you understand communism and why we had to fight the Cold War, why it was imposed.
History.
It's going to be a project, it's an ongoing project, and VOC is celebrating its 30th anniversary. The museum is only 2+ years old. So this is something that we are so happy now to have this actual physical place that we look upon as a center of education. Our president and CEO calls it a schoolhouse as much as he does a museum. And so this is something where if you give, especially a generation, the rising generations, probably late millennial on, they don't always commit to a book. So if we can...
On immigration, the president signed an order that aims to block federal funds from supporting illegal immigration. The Department of Homeland Security also rolled out a multi-million-dollar ad campaign warning would-be illegal border crossers to not even think about it.
If you come to our country and you break our laws, we will hunt you down.
DHS head Kristi Noem also announced the August termination of temporary protected status for over 520,000 Haitians, reversing a Biden administration move to extend protections through 2026. President Trump hosted a Black History Month event at the White House on Thursday.
Welcome to the White House, and we proudly celebrate Black History Month. How are you, darling?
The president entered the reception with
personality around himself, much like Mao and other leaders. And right as he's trying to do that, in the 90s, Falun Gong is taking the country by storm. And it was that political motivation, tragically, was what really started the persecution.
Shocks with electric batons, and forced injections with psychotropic drugs. But the abuse does not stop there. As the world looks the other way, the CCP developed a dark industry out of this persecution.
Other things, and also other tools that can be used to investigate and destroy the terrorist organizations, the cartels and the gangs. This also opens the door for the United States to target the gangs and cartels for financial sanctions. This means that all those global finance networks tied in with their operations, money laundering, Chinese money launderers, again, they do a lot of this through casinos and so on. All of that can now be investigated. And remember also that Trump has now moved some of the IRS agents to focus on this rather than the American citizens. And as this happens as well, we're probably going to see a lot more on possible targeted strikes against the cartels. Again, terror investigations of MS-13 and Tren de Aragua, maybe in New York, which again are some hotbeds for it, and other areas like this, because the designation of these groups as terrorists is now official. Well, everyone, that's all for tonight. Thank you for joining us, and as always, please take care of yourselves, stay informed, and stay free. For democracy. And what would the world be if the bedrock of the American Constitution was lost? In the aftermath of Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton down in Florida, the issue of survivability has now become all the more important. We talked to EJ about what to do to prepare for another emergency.